In this episode of Perception the Law, we cut to the heart of the matter and take a hard look at what causes terrorism and the role that religion plays. Then, applying what we know, we'll look at what we must do if we hope to avoid future terrorist attacks.
Hi, I'm Professor Jeff Addicott. Today we're going to talk about terrorism avoidance. It's good to know the enemy, I suppose, as we've tried to outline, but how do you stop them? And that's a question that we need to ask, both in the small level and the big level. When you triage at a hospital, you take the most serious threat first. The most serious threat facing the United States doesn't come from left-wing extremists. It doesn't come from right-wing extremists. It comes from radical Islam. Whether that radical Islam are associated with, it can be classified as enemy combatants, or whether there's individuals that are infected with the virus of radical jihad. They're not enemy combatants, but they're motivated by the same factor to kill. Now, if you could have an Al-Qaeda member or a radical Islamic extremist sitting in front of you, you would say as a reasonable person, what do you want? Let's loosen our tie. Would you like some land? Would you like some money? What can we do to satisfy you? And that's the Western mind. That's how civilized people would think. What do you want? Let's negotiate. Let's reason together. Their answer? We want to kill you. That's our negotiating position. We want to kill you. No, really, what do you want? No, really. That's our negotiating position. And oh, by the way, radical Islam has killed more Muslims than Christians or Jews. This is not a war against Islam. It's a war against radical Islam, which is a small minority, but large in numbers. Small minority, but there's a lot of individuals that adhere to the banner of radical Islam, and they number in the hundreds of thousands. So, if they will not negotiate with us, what's our options? Well, in the short term, we kill them or we detain them. Now, in our country, we have freedom of speech, freedom of thought. You can say that you like Osama bin Laden. You can adopt the ideology of radical Islam. You can do that. It's only when you try to carry out those things in terms of violence that it becomes criminal behavior. When you conspire to murder in the name of radical Islam, when you actually conduct murder in the name of radical Islam, when you attempt murder in the name of radical Islam, that's when it's illegal. Can individuals say these things? Absolutely. In our country, you have the right to say pretty much anything you want to say as long as you don't incite violence, as long as you don't engage in violence. So we can take that off the table. This is not a war against freedom of thinking. It's a war against individuals that want to kill other individuals. So if you want to express your beliefs in violence, then our response has to be a return of lawful violence or detention. But in the long term, you've really got to close down the Hitler youth camps where they come from. How are these people developed? Where do you get the idea that the Quran tells you to murder? And I think that we need to explore that. And obviously, mainstream Islam needs to address the issue more forcefully of how you achieve these things. And I don't see that happening. What do I mean by that? What motivates someone to murder? You've really got to kind of get into their head. In our Center for Terrorism Law, we work with the FBI on these issues. We try to develop the issues. And the bottom line is, they are not motivated. Radical Islam, they're not motivated by poverty. Poverty is not what causes them to kill. They're not motivated by politics. They're not motivated by money. They are motivated by religion. It's a religious view that they hold, and it ties them together. Whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whether they're educated, whether they're not educated. And we've seen radical Islamic extremists that come from all strata. The 9/11 hijackers, if you look at the study of those individuals, they were middle class, upper middle class. Ali Muttalib, the underwear bomber, he's a multimillionaire. Osama bin Laden, a very successful businessman, highly educated. The individual in charge of Al-Qaeda right now, Dr. Zawahiri, a doctor from Egypt. So no, it's not poverty. They're motivated by religion. So what is that religious belief? You've got to understand what motivates them. Well, in a nutshell, Islam is a works religion. In other words, Islam, like all other religions, has a moral code. And the moral code for all religions is the same. Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. Basically be a good citizen. And all religions recognize, to some degree or another, we're putting this in a nutshell, that man is a flawed creature. Man is not perfect. On the other hand, God, whatever you want to call God, nirvana, paradise, heaven, whatever is there, the Creator is good. And the goal of all religions is the same. When you die, you want to go from this earth to the good. You don't want to go to the bad part, Hades, hell, Sheol, torments, whatever you call it. All religions want individuals to go to the good part, to have union with God. How do you achieve that union with God? The vast majority of religions that are known to mankind that have left their writings for us to read believe that if you keep the moral code of our religion, follow the taboos, live the best life you can, then when you die, you'll go to an evaluation. And Islam is the judgment seat of Allah. And He'll weigh your good deeds, bad deeds, and if you're good enough, you get in. If you're not good enough, you don't get in. And so that's a works religion. Now, in contrast to that, there's also the idea, the belief that, no, you're saved by grace. And the grace concept is you don't have to do any good works. You don't have to be good. You should be good. You should be a good citizen, but it does not save you. And of course, that's primarily focused on Christianity. And so that's pure grace. Now, what radical Islam does, they take the concept of grace and they say, well, look, if I kill in the name of jihad, I don't go to the judgment seat of Allah. I bypass the judgment seat of Allah and I go straight to paradise. So they're essentially barring the grace concept, and they're saying that, you know, I'm going to heaven based on my deed. So it's not pure grace, is it? I mean, they have to kill themselves. So that's work you have to do. That's pretty significant work. But you've got to kill yourself. So the promise is, if you kill yourself in the name of Allah, the first drop of your blood that's shed, you immediately go to paradise. And you get certain rewards there, of course, the virgins, etc., etc. So this is the doctrine that's taught for radical Islam, that you don't necessarily have to follow the pillars of Islam. If you die in jihad, you go straight to paradise, no judgment seat. And oh, by the way, a certain number of your relatives, you can also put them on your checklist, and they'll also go to paradise. Now, whether this is true or not is not my objective here. My point is, they believe it. Doesn't matter if we believe it. They believe it to the point of death. If you read the 9/11 Commission report, you'll see that Muhammad Atta, we found a note in the rental car talking about, remember the dark-eyed virgins waiting for you in paradise. So they believe it. And whatever else you think about them, that is hardcore. Now, because they believe it doesn't mean it's true. It just means that they believe it to the point of death. So how are you going to confront that in the long term? Obviously, moderate Islam has to come in and say, no, the term jihad is a spiritual quest. It doesn't mean what some of these religious leaders are telling you it means. And of course, this is a problem because in Afghanistan, the vast majority of people we kill and capture on the battlefield, they can't read or write. They don't know what the Quran says. They have no idea. They just know what they're told. And therefore, that's what they operate under. So like the Reformation that occurred under Torquemada in the Dark Ages in Europe, there has to be a Reformation here, obviously, for moderate Islam to stand up and say, no, you can't get saved like that. You have to follow the works plan of salvation. You've got to follow the pillars of Islam. You've got to do these things. That's how you respond. You don't bypass the judgment seat of Allah. So ultimately, if it's going to be defeated in the long term, that's one way. The other way, of course, is the concept enshrined in the United Nations Charter and in our own document, our own Constitution, religious freedom, where we don't care what you believe. You can believe anything you want to. It's not my job to proselytize you. You can believe that oranges go around the moon, and if you say 6 times to the left or right, that's how you're saved, that's fine. Just don't kill me, and I won't kill you. So if people adopt the idea that you can hold these beliefs, that you go to heaven for this reason or that reason, that's fine. When you use violence to spread those beliefs, that's the part that is illegal and immoral. So in our country, we celebrate freedom of religion. And that's one of the things that has made our nation prosper. In many countries in the Middle East, they do not celebrate freedom of religion. Saudi Arabia does not celebrate freedom of religion. The death penalty for a Muslim that converts or tries to convert someone else, the death penalty. In Afghanistan, if someone tries to convert someone from Islam, the death penalty. There is no freedom of religion in many of the countries around the world. And until that is cracked, we're going to see this problem with us for a long, long time. To stay up to date on the latest news, be sure to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.